All right, you're ready to go.
Thank you.
Perfect.
David, hey, congratulations on your short film documentary, Flightpath.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you.
Been hearing a lot about this short film of yours through the festival circuit. So tell us, how did this film actually came about for yourself?
Sure. We had actually done a piece for PBS, for public television here in LA, called Night Shift, which was looked at the stories of individuals who work at night and use their stories to explore social issues. And that project wrapped up, and we just had a bunch of research that we'd accumulated. And there was an article about wildlife researchers who work at night, and it actually mentioned this project that Sarah in the film was working on. And there was something about it. I don't know. It just felt like I needed to follow up. And so I ended up reaching out to the company that she was working for, who introduced me to her, and then talking to her. And I kind of fell in love with her. I mean, she was such a compelling and interesting and an emotionally resonant person. And so I ended up going out. I live in Los Angeles, and I drove out to Palm Springs, where she's working, and spent a night with her. And immediately was just struck by the environment, by the work that she was doing, by she kind of revealed her own backstory. I just was kind of sucked in, and felt like it was just one of those stories that we had to tell.
Now, of course, the short film, it's all about sort of like grief and mourning and stuff. I mean, that's a difficult subject to approach. So how did you convince Sarah to participate in your film?
I mean, I think, all documentaries are a collaboration between the filmmaking team and the subject. And I mean, this is no different. And I think mostly it was just, like I said, I went out there and I spent a night with her, and then after that had a series of phone calls and chats with her. And, I think we just developed a relationship, developed trust. And I think, I mean, I was upfront with her, and I said, obviously the work that she's doing and the world that she's in are a big part of it, but, her story was such an important aspect to it, and her personal journey, which you see kind of captured in the film. And I think, she's someone who's very up, she tells it like it is. And I think she was, it took a minute for her to kind of get there, but then once she was comfortable with talking about it and telling that story, I think she was all in. And yeah, and she, I mean, for her, the work is very much intertwined with her own personal journey, and I think she realized very quickly that was the story that needed to come out, that needed to be told. So yeah, it's just time, it's relationships.
I was going to say, you've done quite a few documentaries yourself. I wasn't sure if there was like an interview technique that you actually use to gain the trust of your subjects.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm not, I don't, when I sit down with people, and I say, I'm not a journalist, right? I'm not there for some expose purposes, or to take it, to bust them or catch them, or, I mean, really, I'm there to find ways to get them to talk about their experience, their world, their life, to get them to talk about it in ways that are translatable and that make sense once they are edited together and put into a film. So, I mean, for example, in the film, she doesn't mention she doesn't go into details about the passing of her partner, or personal details about the relationship. And, and personally, I wasn't interested in that. It was more, okay, so this is what happened. Moving forward, how do you then cope with it? How do you make sense of it? How do you wrap your head around it? So I think that our interview with her, our conversation with her, probably took about 3 or 4 hours. We sat down for a long period of time, and just kind of meandered through stuff. So there was no trick or no crazy device. I just, We talked about it. We probably talked about it a couple times in the interview from different perspectives, and then out of that, we're able to kind of, shape the story in the edit bay.
So how many nights did you spend time with her, walking the grounds outside?
I think we were there for 3 nights, 3 days and 3 nights with her was the total production schedule. And you know, the the first night was really kind of just trying to understand visually what she was doing, and sitting there with a cinematographer and trying to figure out, okay, strategically, how do we film this? Is it wide? Is it tight? Are we bringing in light? Really trying to understand how to capture it and capture its essence, its resonance. Really, I think a lot of the conversations we had were about, how do you put the audience in her shoes and make the audience really give the audience a visceral and emotional sense of the resonance of that experience, what it really feels like. So I would say the first night was really about that, and then the second 2 nights were really about trying to capture some of her work. We obviously filmed her training the dogs and working with them a little bit. We filmed her at her house, some of which is filmed during the day, but also is filmed at night. And then, going out with her on 2 different occasions to film her working. We also did want to make sure we captured the dogs finding, stuff out in the desert. So you have to be patient and wait for that to happen. But yeah, it was 3 nights total out there, which it was beautiful. I mean, it definitely wrecked our sleep schedules for the next couple of weeks, but it was well worth it. It's a pretty amazing place to be.
Well, it's one thing for someone like myself watching, the film, but you being there, did you get that sense of calmness, that peacefulness, that serenity as you trek alongside with her?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's like visiting any new place. I think there's a certain amount of time just acclimating and understanding, it's a strange place to be, right? You're in the desert amidst this field of wind turbines. There's the airport that's just adjacent, not too far away. There's the highway and all kinds of other stuff. So it definitely, again, that first night, I think a lot of it was just us taking a deep breath and acclimating and trying to get beyond our own initial kind of knee-jerk reactions to the space and to how it felt. But once I was out there and kind of got over, the team, the production team got over our own kind of whatever nervousness or initial reactions to the place. I think there is something incredibly, for lack of a better word, spiritual about being in the desert at night, just walking around. It really is beautiful. And I think we shared with her an experience of kind of discovery and quietude and all the introspection, all that kind of stuff. Which again, I think is mirrored by the filmmaking approach. A lot, we literally, there's a couple shots where we're up close and following her handheld, but most of the time we're just standing back and really meditating with her as she moved through the space, through the desert, areas that she was tracking, doing the tracking in. And it was pretty incredible. I mean, we got lucky. The moon was out, it was clear, you could see the stars. You could hear the wind, both through the turbines and then just kind of rustling through the brush and stuff. And yeah, it's a pretty magical place. It really is.
Now, for audiences, not to misinterpret that loneliness is depression. This is her happiness.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think so. I mean, she really loves her job. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I mean, as the film shows, I mean, it's a very solitary occupation. She's alone out there with her 2 dogs. It's tiring. I mean, she's walking nonstop. I mean, I think she says she does something like 10 miles a day of walking, back and forth across this area of the desert. but she really loves it. She gets, it is kind of a happy place for her. And it was a place of, obviously of healing and of kind of emotional transcendence. But, you know, she really enjoyed it. And I mean, as much as the place is kind of weirdly magical and a little bit spooky and all that, I mean, she felt very comfortable out there. And I think, as the film shows, I mean, her being out there in that space, that environment, doing that work, gave her the peace and the kind of the grounding to be able to come to terms with who she is and what she'd experienced, and to help her find ways to to be happy and content and discover her true self, right? As she talks about later in the film.
I know, and I'm actually amazed that's even a job. I didn't even know people do that. That your job is just to hike 10 miles a day outside and be with your dogs. I mean, that's amazing. And this was all through a wildlife research company that she's doing it for.
Yeah, she worked at the time. She was working for a company called Rogue Dogs, and they contract with wildlife agencies and businesses who are doing surveys that require tracking dogs to find items, wildlife items in specific areas. So this project was contracted, I believe, through the Bureau of Land Management and the wind turbine company as a way to study the environmental impact of this new generation of turbines and determine, whether they were better or worse in terms of their impact on flying creatures making their way through the Coachella Valley. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty amazing job. I mean, it's one of those jobs that always sounds great on paper, and then you get out there and you're like, do I really want to be spending 8 hours a day or night, in this case, walking back and forth over this grid? I mean, there's definitely tedium and, physically it's demanding. It's, again, it's a lot of solitude. You have to be someone who enjoys being alone. And the dogs, they're obviously high maintenance animals. They require a lot of attention, and they're not the kind of dogs that you can leave in the house and then whatever, head out and go to a party or spend a couple hours socializing. You really have to be around. So she's not just solitary, while doing the job at night, but then on her off time, she's has to be around to keep an eye on the dogs, to keep them in shape, to keep the training up, all that kind of stuff. So it's a pretty intense occupation that takes I think, a very specific kind of person, and it just, obviously Sarah had fit her to a T, both in terms of her personality and where she was coming from and all that kind of stuff. But she loves it and she continues to do it to this day. I mean, that project has ended, but she continues to work on other projects all over the country, all over the US, working for wildlife agencies and businesses who need these kinds of wildlife surveys.
Was it a difficult process to get the Bureau of Land Management or the wind turbine company to allow you to film on their property?
Yes, and to be honest, we never got official permission from the Bureau of Land Management. So we but essentially, for insurance reasons and whatever, there were safety reasons that they didn't want us filming on pieces of the land. So where we're filming is essentially adjacent to the actual property that she does most of her work on, but it's the same, the same place, the same environment. But yeah, they were, they were open, but at the end of the day, did not allow us to go in certain areas, specifically right up next to the turbines, again, for insurance and safety reasons. And then the wind turbine company also was challenging in terms of approvals. I think they were concerned that a film that focused on her work and focused on the negative or whatever the impact of the turbines on wildlife creatures would not necessarily be the best PR piece for them. But at the end of the day, I think it, I know both entities, I think are, happy and excited about the film.
Yeah, it's completely understandable. And just to remind us, those dogs are company dogs. It's like they're coworkers. She doesn't own those dogs. And if
Yeah, although interestingly enough, after this project, so they're the dogs were adopted by the company and then they're trained project by project for specific targets. In this case, obviously to detect flying creatures, birds and bats that would have been killed, impacted by the turbines. And then every new project they have to retrain the dog for a new target, for new, be it like the scat of some animal or some other thing that they're looking for. Um, Ironically, at the end of this project, Sarah ended up adopting the dogs. She, talked to the owners of the company and said, "Hey, I've developed such a relationship. I'm so close to these dogs. I want to keep working with them specifically." So she's held on to them, and she and the two dogs have continued to work together, since then. But yeah, typically the dogs are adopted by the company and trained for this profession, and then essentially given to various handlers who take them out.
Most excellent. And for the future, for those people who do want to watch it, where can they watch your short film? Is it going to continue on the festival circuit?
Yeah, so it's wrapping up the festival circuit as we speak. It just played in Culver City this past week. And then in the new year, it'll be up on, I believe, Vimeo and YouTube as a whatever to find there. So it'll be widely available, I believe, as of January 1st, for people to watch, which is exciting.
So what's up next for you? After all this is all wrapped up, more documentaries, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it's my bad habit. We keep making them. Yeah, so we're finishing. We have a feature-length documentary that we're just finishing up. Actually, as you know, we have a kind of a rough cut viewing this evening, which will come out hopefully early-ish next year, mid next year, which is a wildly different subject about an 83-year-old man who's developmentally disabled and lives in an institution.
Hmm.
It's kind of a portrait of him. But yeah, and then there's other stuff, we just keep making them. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not the most financially rewarding career. I would not advise anyone if they want to make a lot of money to start making short or feature length docs for that matter. But it's just it's just something that we keep doing. And
So
that it
so
is.
why do you do it? What is just the pure love of doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it for two reasons. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a dilettante, right? I'm the kind of person. Some people they want to specialize on one, they just dig into one subject and they spend their lives exploring that subject. And I have the utmost respect for that kind of personality. But I'm someone where every 6 months or a year, I want to dive into a different world, a different subject. I just want to learn about. I'm very much that kind of magpie, looking at different things. So I think that's one, and that drives me to learn and to look and to be intrigued by different subjects. And then, you know, there's nothing like it. I mean, the opportunity to go and I mean, I feel so privileged, so lucky to be able to go and spend, for example, with this project, spend a couple days out in the desert with this person, experiencing her world, the generosity that she shows in being hospitable and sharing her life and sharing her perspective, her world. Uh, I mean, it's such a beautiful thing. It really is. And so the opportunity to experience that, and then the opportunity to take that experience and translate it cinematically and be able to then share it with other people, it really is a magical thing. And I mean, some people would write books or take still photographs or make a video game or whatever it might be. And this is just the medium that makes the most sense to me. So yeah, I can't imagine doing anything else, quite frankly.
Well, learning never stops. So let me wrap it up with one last question because I know I've taken a lot of your time. So as audiences have a chance to watch your film, what is the one most important take you hope they walk away with?
I mean, I think going into the project, it didn't strike me until the film was really finished how important Sarah's message is about the grief journey. this idea. I mean, all of us experience grief in some way, shape, or form. Everybody. I mean, it's part of life, right? We lose friends, family members, people in our world. And, you know, the thing that I really learned from her was how grief, as opposed to being something that you should fix or that can be just quickly overcome, it just is it's just a part of you. And that grief process, that grief journey takes a long time. And it's not something to necessarily overcome, but something to incorporate into who you are, into your personality, into the way that you look at the world. And I know that that's something, as we've showed it to audiences, that people really have responded to, is this idea of, you know, how to think about grief, how to process it. And you know, grief, it's not a disease, it's not a sickness, it's not nothing wrong. It's something, you know, very innately and quintessentially human. And you know, kind of looking at it that way, and in a weird way embracing it, and finding ways to incorporate it and make it part of yourself, so to make yourself stronger, better, more loving, all those things. I think you know, to me, that's the power of Sarah and her story, and of this film.
Most excellent. And yes, I mean, her storytelling, your the visuals, everything, the narrative, it's just something so poetic watching your short film on Flight Path. So, David, thank you very much for carrying this conversation with us. And we look forward to more documentaries from you in the future. Thank you.
I do too. I do too. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time and all the questions today. Thank you so much.